Police are getting ready to cover this year's Oaks and Derby, but this year, for the very first time in its history, the Oaks moves to a later post time, 8:40 p.m. That means huge crowds much later at the track after a long day of racing.
And joining us now to talk about the Derby and other important safety issues is Metro Police Chief Paul Humphrey here with us.
Chief, thanks for coming in. We'll talk about the Derby in a second, but first let's talk about what happened at Thunder over Louisville, the stabbing of the teenage boy. You just saw the story here. Right. You all were able to make that arrest quickly. He told us in an interview, though, that there were a lot of adults around him that just stood around and did nothing. What runs through your mind when you hear that?
Oh, well, a couple of things. First of all, I know that kid said he's not a hero, but he absolutely is. So if he wants to go to lmpdjobs.com, we've got a spot for him, absolutely. But sometimes even adults need mentors, and they need people to look up to. And clearly that group of adults needed that kid to look up to and all his friends. Kind of pathetic that a group of grown men would stand around and not help in a situation where a young man like that clearly recognized the need for help and stepped in. And, you know, as much as we talk about what kids do wrong, that kid's a great example of what most of our kids are. You know, they're good kids who are out here looking out for each other. And he's a great example for the community.
Well, let's talk about all the Derby Festival events we still have yet to come, as well as the Derby. How do you prepare for so many events, and with the eyes of the world really looking on Louisville at this time? How do we keep everyone safe?
Well, I mean, we could probably take whatever interview I did with you from last year and replay it, because it really is. You know, it's a script. We have people that are working very hard in our special events section that plan these things out months ahead. The preparation for this year's Derby began shortly after last year's Derby, and so the only big thing, as you kind of mentioned, is that later start. It is going to put a squeeze on people, and it's not just us that it puts a squeeze on. I think every industry that makes money off of the Kentucky Derby and this great time is going to feel the impacts of that change. And so we'll make our adjustments to it just like everybody else, but we're going to make sure that we'll work with all of our partners, state, local, federal, and we'll make sure that people are able to have a good time, and we're there to keep them safe.
Talk to us about the employment force, the number of officers you have right now. Is it right at 1,000, a little above that? Are you still short 300 you've always said, or is it even more than that now?
Yeah, we're just over 1,000, and that's part of what we're exploring is, you know, what is our actual need? You know, policing has changed a lot since merger, when we had 1,300 or so officers, and I would love to get back to that number, but you know, there is a realization that regardless of what happens, that's going to take a long time to get back to. So we have to work with the resources that we have while we continue to push for more officers and new officers, and we've got to make best use of the good resources and the people that we have here now to take care of people.
The mayor is going to announce his budget. What do you want to see from him? Things like promotion for, you know, more officers, that kind of thing, as well as obviously money for the department. Well,
you know, when the conversation we were just having about making sure that we work more efficiently, a big part of that is technology, and the city is invested in technology. We as a department is invested in technology, or have invested in technology, and so you see that paying off with things like drones and ALPRs, and that technology is a game changer when it comes to what we can do with the manpower that we have. And so we're putting those tools in the hands of officers, and it's paying off, absolutely.
Can you give us an update after you've last spoke about Caitlin Hall, the woman suffering the mental health crisis in the East End, shot and killed by two officers as she came at them with the jagged porcelain there in her hand. Sending mental health professionals to these scenes, where do you stand on that? Where do you see a middle ground here? There have been advocates calling for change here.
No, I think this is an issue that we have to deal with as a community. This is not strictly a police problem, but I also want to level set that we are open to everything that we can possibly do to make these situations safer, not just these, but all situations. And so we are going to support and explore every option available, with the understanding that is a truth that people have to understand, is that these types of situations are going to happen. As tragic as they are, and we are going to learn lessons and improve, that is not going to take away every bad outcome. What we're going to do is make sure that we work as hard as we can to influence those situations to the best outcome as possible. And what you've seen is we are generally very successful at getting people the help that they need. And so we're going to keep pushing to try to see how much closer to the ground level that we can get those resources to people so that we can avoid tragedies like that.
One new law that came out of the Kentucky General Assembly, the HALO Act, the 25 feet, keep your 25 feet distance away from police. If they give you a verbal warning, you'll be arrested. What was that related to?
I had nothing to do with that act, and so that's part of what we're exploring with our legal department, is to kind of understand all of the parameters. I know they've done that in other states. We've always had an obstructing government operations law here, so we had the ability to intervene on those things, and so I want to make sure that we fully understand this law and all of the implications, particularly on the First Amendment that it might have, and that we educate officers prior to this law going into effect in several months.
All right, Chief, thank you so
thanks
much
for coming
being
in.
here.
Thank
we
you all.
appreciate it.